2024 is about halfway done, and throughout the year, we have seen some incredible games released, and we have also seen some incredible games announced. So, in this video, I wanted to go ahead and talk about my 2024 Game of the Year predictions. So, yeah, I'm gonna keep the intro short. Now, let's go ahead and get into it. My first prediction for 2024 Game of the Year is actually going to be Black Myth Wukong. Now, look, I know this hasn't come out yet, but from what we've seen from this game so far, from trailers and gameplays, dude, it looks insane and it looks super incredible. And this could be, a true next gen game, and it could be a defining game of this decade. Its potential is that high. I don't want to, put it on later in the video because it hasn't come out yet. So we'll just have to wait and see. But this game looks absolutely insane. It's a Souls-like, it follows Chinese mythology. It looks super, super creative. The art style looks insane. The combat and the boss battles just look nuts. This is for sure on my radar. I think that this has a shot for Game of the Year, but once again, we just have to wait and see for the release. Now, these next three games that I'm going to talk about are remakes, and I know remakes are a great area for Game of the Year. However, a lot of these remakes were just absolutely incredible. Let's go ahead and start with the first one, Persona 3 Reload. This was a great release early on in the year, and honestly, it's one of the best releases of this year, like straight up. And I'm not too big of a Persona fan, but I know that this game is massive for the Persona community, and it's just an amazing RPG game all around. I've been wanting to play it, but yeah, it's just really an amazing remake of a game that a lot of people consider to be the best in the Persona franchise, so it's definitely worth mentioning. Next up, I got Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and this game is seriously so massive, bro. This is one of the biggest open worlds I've ever experienced. The open world is filled to the brim with content. There's mini games here. There's just so many side quests to do, and like the mini games in specific just add so many hours to the game. Like, it's actually just insane. There's just so much to do in this game. On top of that, bro, it looks amazing. This game's visuals and graphics are actually stunning. The combat is fluid. The characters are amazing. The story is so good. This was a 10 out of 10 for me. I want Final Fantasy VII Rebirth to win Game of the Year, but once again, it is a remake, so it's kind of a gray area there. Last but not least, I wanted to mention the Silent Hill 2 remake. Now look, I know there's a lot of controversy about this remake. However, I do think its potential is, really, really high. Silent Hill 2 is often described by fans as a lightning in a bottle experience, something that's super hard to replicate. So if they can really knock it out of the park with next gen technology, I think that Silent Hill 2, it's in the discussion for one of the best releases this year, especially because there's not a lot of horror games coming out, so I think it will dominate in that genre for sure. But we just have to see what they do with things like the sound design, the visuals. The visuals actually look really good in my opinion, but there's a lot of controversy about the controls. So this one's really, really up in the air. But I wanted to mention it because if they do the Silent Hill 2 remake justice and it is good, oh man, dude, this is going to be one of the best releases of the year for sure. It's really just super hard to tell. It's one of those things that could, do really, really well and be an incredible game, or it could flop. And a lot of people are judging the game based off of, gameplay and trailers. And Silent Hill 2 isn't a game you can really do that with, man. Like, it's something you have to have people experience to tell the full story, because there's a ton of things to take into account. For example, sound design, or this is a type of game that just makes you feel a certain way. So it's really just up in the air, and you can't really judge it based off trailers and gameplays. That's my argument. So yeah, there's a lot of good remakes and remasters coming out this year, and if I missed any, let me know. But I wanted to mention those because I do think that there is, some argument to be made that these games could qualify for Game of the Year. For example, like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, it's massive in scale, and it's truly a quadruple A game. I'm going to be completely honest, but once again, it's not like an original new IP. Another big release that's coming out relatively soon that I wanted to bring up that's kind of in a gray area is Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree. Now, yes, I know this is a DLC, and it probably won't be eligible to be in the Game of the Year nominee discussion, especially since Cyberpunk Phantom Liberty wasn't able to be in the Game of the Year discussion. It just wasn't. It's a DLC, it's not a video game. I get it. But regardless, Shadow of the Erdtree is definitely going to win some type of award for like best DLC, best expansion, whatever. It's definitely going to win some award like that. And overall, Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree is going to be it's basically going to be a sequel to Elden Ring, and it's just too massive to not mention in this video, to be completely honest, because we'd all be lying to ourselves if we weren't willing to admit that this is one of the, most anticipated releases of this year, just straight up. Another game that I think is going to be interesting to talk about is Dragon's Dogma 2. I do think it is going to fall a little bit short for Game of the Year nominees, and that's not to say that they didn't deliver on this game. I'm actually a massive fan of Dragon's Dogma 2. However, I will say Dragon's Dogma is a really subjective game franchise at this point, dude. Like, you either love these games, Dragon's Dogma 1, Dragon's Dogma 2, or you just completely hate them. Because there's some mechanics here that can be really frustrating, and they turn a lot of players off. And you also had things with Dragon's Dogma 2, like on next-gen consoles, it being capped at like 30 frames. I thought that was a little bit annoying, but on PCs it ran great. But there's still, a ton of issues for some people with like the pawn system. But that's just how this game is supposed to play. And if you either love Dragon's Dogma or you hate it, there's really no in between. I don't think Dragon's Dogma 2 fell short when in terms of delivering to the fans. I think it did perfect on that. In my opinion, I was satisfied, but it really can't please everyone. It's kind of a hard game to get into, to be completely honest. With all that being said, though, like, as a Dragon's Dogma fan, I really, really enjoyed this. Like, I thought it delivered in all aspects, and I would love to see this at least get nominated for Game of the Year. I don't know if it will, though. I think it falls a little bit short, but I still think it's worth mentioning. Another game I think has a really strong chance of being nominated is Stellar Blade. Dude, Stellar Blade was honestly amazing, and it exceeded my expectations. The boss fights, the combat, the soundtrack, the visuals of this game were stunning, bro. Like, they were so good. I had a blast playing this game. I sunk about like 45 to 50 hours in the first week this came out. It was a great release, and I feel like a lot of people who've played this will advocate for it being Game of the Year, because it really is a true next-gen game, and I think it's one of the best games of this decade, to be completely honest. This game had a really good story that kind of went over a lot of people's heads, but overall this game was just absolutely amazing. I do think that it is a potential Game of the Year nominee. And last but not least, I kind of have an out-of-the-box pick here a lot of people won't be expecting. I have Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine 2. Dude, this game looks absolutely insane, and this looks like it could elevate the Warhammer 40,000 games to another level, at least in like video game terms. This is one of those games where we're gonna have to wait for the release, but I do think it has a really high potential, and this is unlike anything we've ever seen from the Warhammer games, and I'm super excited for this. It is kind of a long shot to say that this is a Game of the Year nominee, or will be a Game of the Year nominee, but I wanna have hope. I'm a huge Warhammer fan, and I do think this will be a great release regardless, even if it's not a Game of the Year nominee. But I just really wanted to mention it because it's kind of a dark horse for me. I do think that this could actually blow the gaming industry out of the water. It has the potential, and it just looks amazing. The combat looks satisfying, the visuals look great, and like I said before, the gameplay and stuff is unlike anything we've ever seen from the Warhammer franchise. So I'm really excited to see what this game is all about. I really hope it doesn't flop. There is potential for that, but yeah, it also could be really good. But yeah, that is going to wrap up my Game of the Year predictions. Make sure to drop a comment if I missed anything. I feel like I hit the nail on the head perfectly here. I feel like I mentioned all of the games that have a really strong chance this year. If you guys disagree with me, drop it in the comments down below. And if you guys do enjoy the content, make sure to drop a like and a subscribe. It really helps me out a lot. And I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.